Hey folks, Rob Daniels here from the movie, TV, and video game soundtrack program Visions in Sound. I can also be found on my website, visionsinsound.ca. Gimli is sleeping in the other room, so he might join us later on. Who knows? Whatever's going on. So welcome. This is week 9 of my journey to 25 years of Visions in Sound. Wow, week 9. This has really flown past for me. In any case, I mentioned last week that I was going to kind of try and get away from science fiction. We'll see. We'll see how well that works. This week, I have a personal treat, at least for me. This has been a long time coming. I just will say that. I'm speaking of the 1941 film 49th Parallel. Now, it's funny that it took, well, first of all, I have to thank Eric Woods. If it hadn't been for him talking about this particular box set, and this is about Ralph Vaughan Williams' box set. It is a very comprehensive box set. It's got stuff like Scott of the Antarctic, Coastal Command Suite, the England of Elizabeth, the story of a Flemish farm. There is some beautiful stuff on here, but the one thing that got me was 49th Parallel. And that actually got me to go out and get the full score. Now, this is the fully realized score. The score in the film actually is slightly different because I guess in those days they wrote before the at least in Vaughan Williams' case. Now, with Vaughan Williams, he felt badly that he wasn't doing more for the war effort. So basically what he did was I can't remember who he mentioned it to, but then he got brought onto this project, 49th Parallel. Now, 49th Parallel is a British film, but it talks about Canada. And I will say this, it is impressive. I'll talk about the music first, but then I'll later on talk about the film itself because there's some pretty interesting moments in it. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, the score here done by Ralph Vaughan Williams. I am continually amazed that just when I think I know everything about film music and I've heard it all, something else comes along and goes, nope, you haven't heard it all. And that's why I keep telling people, get out there and listen to different soundtracks. It's more than just Hans Zimmer, John Williams, and the rest. There are some fantastic scores out there that need to be heard. This is one of them. 49th Parallel, Ralph Vaughan Williams. I can't speak highly enough of it. Very early on, the score actually kind of is reminiscent, and if you listen to it, it sounds pretty good. There are moments when it evokes the feeling of Holst's Mars Bringer of War. And I was surprised. That surprised me. Now, I've seen the film. I saw the film on Tubi TV, which as of this recording, it's still there. At least Tubi TV Canada. So I'll leave it at that. But it surprised me. It really shocked me. I was like, wait a second. Okay. You think about scores of those days being very utilitarian, but this was cool. This was cool to hear. It also throws in something very interesting. It throws in a couple of notes of O Canada. Now, for those that are historically aware, O Canada was not officially adopted as Canada's national anthem until 1980, though it was written in 1880. So, it was out there, it was being used, but it wasn't Well, in those days, who would it have been? Would it have been God Save the King? I think it would have been God Save the King in those days. Well, either God Save the King or God Save the Queen, whichever way. In any case, yeah, this score is fantastic. This 49th Parallel has very slowly worked its way into my, and actually, I'm considering it one of my favorite scores of all time. And this was all because I ended up picking this up from Shandos for £5, which is about $10, and that was a little, and the shipping was really inexpensive. I think it was in the end, I think it ended up being like $15 for a 3-disc set and all the music you get on there. It's fantastic. But getting back to 49th Parallel. 49th Parallel has elements in it that I kept listening and I went, actually, what I'll do is I'll play an example. It's very, 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 very brief because I don't want to tick off the bots. But in any case, have a listen. I think this would very easily have fit into Raiders of the Lost Ark, which, oddly enough, I think was set during that era, 38 to 41, that kind of era in there. In any case, have a listen. I'll be right back. So there you go. Some fantastic music from a 1941 film that I was not expecting. I was just, like I said, I was blown away. Absolutely blown away. So, the film itself is a fictitious story, of course. It takes place just before the U.S. entry into World War II. The reason why I say this is that a German U-boat is sunk in Hudson Bay, and there are 6 German soldiers that have to make their way from the Hudson's Bay Trading Company outpost in Churchill, which it's funny, or they have to make it to their first stop is to Churchill. And if you haven't seen the film, there's a great moment where after the one of the head of the outpost mentions Churchill, it cuts to one of the German soldiers and he goes, Churchill. And it's so funny. I mean, looking back upon it, it probably would have angered the blood of Brits, but I thought it was hilarious looking back upon it. It was so funny. In any case, and see the film. It's definitely worth it. But one of the things that struck me about this film was its understated patriotism of the Canadians. The Germans were making fun of the Canadians and saying, oh, they're weak, and that sort of thing. But there are moments in the film that I was like, holy mackerel, I am so proud to be a Canadian at this moment. And that continues. There is a couple of moments in the film. I don't want to ruin it. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it because it is definitely worth checking out. But yeah, I was like, well, okay, I'll use an example. When I used to do my Wednesday night live streams, which I don't do anymore, but I'm concerned, there was a propaganda video that I played during one of my Remembrance Day shows. I'll play a little bit for you, and it'll kind of give you an example as to what I mean by this. Here you go.
Canada began to beat out the tempo of must.
I must work.
More shells, more planes, more ships.
I must buy war bonds.
More money for more equipment, more supply.
I must go.
More sailors, more soldiers, more airmen.
I must carry on.
Must. Canada beats out the tempo of must.
All all this to get ready. And now our turn is coming. If we don't let down, we have stood up to the enemy.
We can strike back.
Harder, longer. Now it's our turn.
To choose when and where we strike. And when we do, watch out.
So yeah, that for me is like, especially during those COVID times, so proud to be a Canadian, so proud to live in a country that is free, that is, I am so proud to live in Canada. I will just say that. Just leave it at that. It's the country I was born in, and it's the country I will continue to stay in. I love Canada. In any case, rant over. I'm not going to get into it. Get out there and listen to different scores. Not just John Williams, not just James Horner, not just Hans Zimmer. There are so many other composers out there. Joel McNeely, Graham Revell, Ralph Vaughan Williams, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But get out there and listen to them, because film music is a lot more than just those early composers that I mentioned, the Williams, the Horners, and the Zimmers. Not that there's anything wrong with their music, but there is so much. There's a much wider world out there that you need to check out. So, like I said, here's what I'm gonna do. I'll say this: if you want to watch 49th Parallel, like I said, as of this recording, which was the 28th of July, it's still the movie 49th Parallel is still on Tubi TV. You might be able to find it on YouTube. I don't know. Also, if you're interested, my show, Visions in Sound, is every Saturday morning, 12 to 2 a.m., right on here, not here, but on 98.5 CKWR. And I can also be found on my website, visionsinsound.ca. You can also find me on the Twitter, at VisionsSound. I'm also on Good Pods, a downloadable app for your phone or other type device. And I'm also on the various podcatchers out there, including that of Apple Music. So just type in Visions in Sound, you'll be able to find me in one way or another. Go on the website too. There are some really great interviews on there as well. I mentioned last week that the Lisa Gerard interview, that's on the website. There's a bunch of interviews. Just check them out. Visionsinsound.ca. In any case, and I'll mention this again. Get out there and listen to different scores, variety of scores, because there is so much good stuff out there that it'll blow your mind as to the amount of stuff that's out there. In any case, have yourself a great week. I might be doing, actually, you know what? Have yourself a great week. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.